So in this chapter, we're going to go through a basic Endo workflow process for getting some nice basic normal map details. I want to point out that I might have mislabeled some of my original masks here. That's pretty bad. If you don't know what your masks are doing, then you may not have the best results with it. Um, to be honest, actually, I think I'm okay. When in doubt, you can always check. So I'm just going to go ahead and save out this temporary color key. I'm going to make sure that I have everything labeled correctly. I like double checking sometimes when I'm not sure. When you're not sure of something, it's always best to make sure, because later down the road that stuff could kick you in the ass. So let's just create a key here, and I'll go into my marmoset and I'll plug in this key, and let's just check our colors real quick. Our front wall is red, so front wall red. The right wall is what I was kind of confused about. Let's check it. Okay, the right wall looks pretty good, and the top wall and the side wall, other left wall green. Top wall should be dark blue. We're good. Bottom wall should be pinkish magenta. There we go. Alright, so it looks like I'm good and set up. I'm going to go back in and plug in my diffuse the way I had it. So I'm going to go to Textures, my in progress folder, and I'm going to plug in my temporary diffuse. Alright, great. You can keep a color key on the ready and showing on your model at all times while you're doing your normal maps, just in case you need to have that moment of clarity where you kind of have to be like, okay, was red the front wall or was red the left wall on this? There's no shame in that. In fact, it'd be probably smart to do when you're working with your normal creation. Alright, but we don't want to harp on color keys too much. What I'm going to do now is I'm slowly going to work in my mask group right now. In fact, I'm going to hide every other group but my mask right now. Alright, great. And what I'm going to do in mask, I'm actually going to create another subfolder under mask right here. I'm going to call these UV islands. And I'm actually going to select every single island here and just drag and drop it inside of UV island, because we're actually going to have a separate group for each part of my wall here in terms of masks. So group 1 will be front wall. This is where we're going to draw all of our masks for front wall. We'll have our right wall. We'll have our left wall. Trust me, organizing it in this fashion may be anal retentive, but trust me, it's gonna come in handy later when you start having multiple different layers, multiple different masks. It's just good for business. At least with me. I mean, I'm kind of all over the place in my brain, so I need all the help I can get sometimes. And let's do this utility panel thing, that box that kind of extrudes out of the wall. Utility panel, actually not utility wall. And we'll have window. Alright, so now what we want to do is we want to check back at our concept art, and we want to look at all the superficial detail on our model here. Okay? And what we can see here is we have a lot of panels coming out of our wall here, a lot of different recesses and panels. What I like to do is I like to look at the concept art, and I like to make some I like to approximate what pieces come out of the wall and what pieces go into the wall. So basically my extrusions versus my recesses. And that'll really help you in the process, because you don't want... Endo is going to ask you whether you want to make a normal map that looks like it's going in or coming out. So I'm first going to start on... Let's just start on this utility panel right here. What I can basically see right now are 3 long recesses that go up and down the utility panel here, and then 3 short little recesses that go here on the bottom right side. So I'm basically just going to create some masks to basically describe these recesses. So we'll get rid of this. And here's my utility panel, this cyan here. And I'm going to go into my utility panel group inside my masks and make a new layer. And I'm going to call this N. because these masks will appear as if they're going into the wall. So let's just zoom in on my utility panel here. Alright, and I'm just going to grab a brush with a hard edge, okay, and let's see what kind of size we want. Let's make it about 20 pixels a piece. Now let's go 25. Alright, and I'm going to select a pure black color, and I'm just going to draw in these vertical recesses on the utility panel. So I'll hold down shift so I can only go up and down. And the brush lends itself to really create these nice rounded edges right here. I think that's kind of how it was drawn here. They look pretty rounded off at the top and bottom. So I'll have that one. Oh, let me undo that. I'll have this one. And I'll have, that's the shift button working for you, that one. And I'm going to look at my work and see if I like it. You know what? I think these 3 marks could be a little bit wider. So I'm going to go to my history here and go up all the way to before I made these marks. And I'm actually going to increase the pixels by 10. Alright. And you know what? Just so I can make sure that I start and end at the same place for each one, I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to get some rulers in here. I'm just going to drag in, some rulers so I know when to stop and finish my strokes here. Alright, that looks about right. Looks like I need to hide my mask here, so that cyan on cyan was getting a little bit crazy. Alright, so I want to start my brush stroke at the end of the bottom of this ruler. Let's see here. Oh, I hid my whole mask group. What I want to do is I actually want to hide my UV islands group. That way I can see the actual mark I just made. So we'll go down here. Let me make sure I'm hiding the right stuff just one more time. Alright, great. So I'll go down here, make my first mark. I think that's a little bit over too much. There we go. And I'll make the rightmost one. I hate when I hold down shift and it snaps to like that. There we go. And I'll make one right in the middle here. Alright, great. Actually, I went down too far on that one. Alright, great. And maybe I need to move this over just a little bit. So I want to move it over. And I'm going to move this one down. Alright, so I have these basic 3 recesses corresponding to the recesses here on my utility panel. And I'm going to go in here now and draw in the vertical 3 at the bottom here. So we'll make this 15. And we'll just draw these 3 basic horizontal recesses. And what I'll do is, just for the sake of keeping everything uniform, I'll just copy and paste this recess over and over again. That way, I'm going to turn off my snap. Just messing around with how I want to place this. Alright, so after I duplicated these 3 layers, we're going to flatten them back out, rename this in, and here are the masks for my in on my front panel here. Alright, so we're just going to leave this for right now, and we're going to continue on and make different masks for the rest of the parts on my wall. We're going to keep going with just the recesses here, just the parts that go in. Alright, so it looks like over here on the right side of my wall, it looks like I have panels going, or recesses going down all the way, and then they get obscured by this damage, and then some recesses that kind of go horizontal at the bottom. So I want to go over here and go to the right side here. So this is the right side of my wall. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so I can see the whole picture here. And I'm going to just create some nice masks going down here. So I'm going to go to my right wall layer here, and we'll call this in. And I'm going to grab my brush, and we're just going to make some nice vertical recesses. We'll go to about right here. That damage kind of hides the rest of them, so I'm going to have to just approximate on how I think they should work. And again, I'll just grab this brush right here, and I'll just duplicate this layer a few times just to make sure it's nice and even. Maybe I can fit one more down there. Alright, great. So now I'm going to come in and draw my horizontal lines here. So I'll go there. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and collapse all these layers, flatten them out, because I think I can move this over just a little bit more. And then I'll copy and paste this vertical line. I think I can fit one more in there. Alright, great. Just place it like so. And I'm using my UV islands, my UV markers, as guides for this. Alright, cool. And I'll just do the same thing here. I'm going to copy and paste. Let me draw a better marquee. Let me zoom in a little bit. I like using the navigator to navigate around. Call me old-fashioned. Alright, just going to come in here. Duplicate these recesses here. We'll collapse the layers. Now I can duplicate two at a time. We'll collapse them again. Now I can do 4 layers. Collapse them. Maybe draw one more in right here. Alright, and we'll call this in, because these masks are going to be the information that describe going in. Alright, so we're going to come back to our concept art, and let's look at what we need to do on our front facing wall here. Alright, looks like I have some damage here, or those could be seen as horizontal recesses as well. Looks like I have maybe some horizontal recesses right here, but pretty much everything right here, maybe a recess going up the side of this little panel coming out. But I see a lot of stuff coming out too, so I gotta make a plan of attack here. I typically like to do my ends first, and then I overlay my outs, my detail that comes out. So I'll make my ends and then make my outs. So I'm going to come in here and just look and see what parts are recessed again. I don't know. I'll just do some approximations. Just get a feel for what I think would be the best. Alright. So I'm going to go 100% so I can get a better idea of how my UV map's working. So here's where my window is. And I have another little utility panel that we'll make in a second with just normal maps. And I think I'm going to create a N line going down that kind of separates this little shallow utility panel coming out. I'm going to make a recess coming down here. I'll make some horizontal lines here. And I'll wing a few things. I think I might want to make some recesses going around the border of my window here. Add a nice little border around the window. Alright, so let's just get to that. So let's go to my front wall. We'll make a new layer. And I'm just going to draw some mask around the window itself here. Alright. I think that might be a little too thick. So half of my mask is going on the UV island, and half of my mask is going on the negative space of that window. That's fine. That'll be just fine. It'll give the appearance that the window is starting and it has like a little inlet, a nice little flourish, if you will. Alright. And we'll clean up this little mask here. Undo. Yeah. Alright, great. You know what? I kind of like these nice rounded edges right here. I could be using the vector tool to get these nice rounded edges, but the brush tool will work just as good. So I want to make sure I come in here and leave that nice rounded edge right there. I'll come down here and finish it out like that. Now I have these nice little rounded corners for my mask. Alright, now I'm going to draw an inlet here That comes all the way down, and I'll start from this line right here because this UV line right here dictates where the top of the model starts jutting out to this side. So I'll do one maybe starting right here. I'm not going to go totally against the window. Got a lift shift. That's a little too far, and I want to make the brush a little bit smaller. And I'm just going to come all the way down. And I'll make some corrections. And I'm going to stop it right at that UV line. And you know what? I'm going to tweak it a little bit more. I'm going to move it over. Get kind of close up onto that window. Alright. And I'm going to scale it horizontally a little bit more. Flatten it out a little bit. Make it a little bit less fat. Give this nice little seam here. Alright, this will be the last group I do. I'll go ahead and do all the busy work after I do this one, and I'll kind of briefly touch on what parts I did during the pause, just so you're not always seeing what's going on. Okay, I do have care. I do need to take care here because I have this detail of these recesses right here, and before I start drawing these horizontal recesses, I got to know where these exist. So I'm just going to go in and bring up my normal map here. And you know, if you want, you can always bring in your normal map and have it underneath as kind of a guide to making your masks here. And I'm just going to make these 3 horizontal recesses. And I guess right about here is where the damage is going to be. So it'd be cool to have these lines kind of going into that damage spot. I think those 4 lines are about all we need. Alright, and let's just look one more time at my concept art. Looks like I'm good. These look like these are stepping out, so we'll do that with the outs. These panels look like they're coming out. It actually looks like there's some nice little recesses on the window right here. Do I want to do those now or later? I think I'll do them later. I just want to get some basic stuff going here. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pause the video and finish drawing out the rest of my recess in masks. So I'll be right back when I do that. Alright, so I did a little bit more work during my pause, and I want to go over a few key concepts here about drawing normal maps on a 2D space and making sure they translate correctly or logically onto your model here. The first thing we got to remember is our model is mirrored on both sides here. So when we're drawing on our top wall right here, we're drawing this pattern. Not only is this pattern going to be repeated on the left side, but it's going to be repeated on the right side as well. So what I'm going to do is I can take a snapshot of this image right here. Take a snapshot of this image right here. Let's see, let's go to Save As, and we'll just make a temporary targa on our desktop. Call this temp mask in. Just make a diffuse of our normal map and our colors here. And then we're going to go into our diffuse and we're going to plug in that temporary color we just made. So we can demonstrate what our masks are doing on our model here. So now we got to ask ourselves, do we like what we see here? Alright. Do we want to have such a steep or disconnection between our normal maps here? Do we want to maybe continue these lines like I did on the bottom here, just make them straight all the way across? Do we want this gap here in between our rivets or our recesses, or do we want them to be uniformly across? Because we're dealing with a mirrored model here. So let's tweak our normal map mask just for a second here. I think that's a little too busy too. I think I got too much detail right there. It's going to be crazy on the eyes. So I'm going to cut back on a few things. I'm going to merge these masks together so it's just one complete line going all the way through. I'm also going to draw a mask right here at this crease where the top of the wall juts out. And I have to draw it in a way where I'll draw a mask down the front and figure out how I can continue to draw it along this left side of my wall here. So let's tackle that real quick. It's always good to have like a preview of your masks before you actually make them into normals. So first things first, let's bring back my UV snapshot and let's make sure that our divots right here on the top aren't too busy and that they are evenly spaced when they mirror across, because this space right here will be doubled because as it mirrors across you'll have this space, and imagine a mirror image here, you'll have another space this length right here, and it causes a bigger gap between our recesses right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up to my top wall, go to N, and I'm going to delete some of this because I think it's too busy. There's such a thing as adding too much detail to your model. Trust me, it can hurt your model sometimes. Alright, so I'm going to move this up. This effectively cuts down on the busyness, and it makes this gap look more like it's spaced out in between these two recesses right here. You'll see what I mean when I give you another preview there. Alright, I also want to continue these divots all the way across to the other side. See how they're kind of just stopping and creating this little area right here? I'm going to create a nice juxtaposition of these lines being separated right here and these going all the way across. Alright, so I'm basically just going to grab these guys right here and I'm just going to shove them up like so. Okay, I think I need to maybe fix the spacing just a little bit. There we go. And you can overpaint your UVs. That's encouraged. It makes sure that the normal map has a clean finish point here. If you, let's say for instance, we just did something like this, well, there's no guarantee that our normal map will translate cleanly. We want to overpaint on our UVs right there. Alright, great. And I'm going to bring this one up here. There we go. That looks better. Alright, so I fixed the top. Alright, now let's fix my right side panel here, because that is just too busy. I'm going to delete every other one here. So I'm going to go to my right wall layer here, and I'm just going to go in and delete every other divot. There we go. Oh, let me do this. Snore. Boring, I know. There we go. And I'll delete this one right here. Alright, great. And we also got to pay attention. Is this little line right here going to be equally spaced out when it mirrors? I say no, it's not. So I need to give it a little bit more space. Maybe move it over just a little bit. Alright, cool. And I think this is a little too busy too. So I'll delete every third one. Kind of break up the pattern here. Alright, great. Alright, so the next order of business is to create this mask as it goes around and across. We got to make sure though, with this UV seam here, we got to make sure that our line continues around this corner. And we can see here that this UV is connected to this UV, so we're going to have to draw a line on this seam right here and then continue it onto that seam over there. So we go to the front wall and we're just going to draw a mask right across that seam right there. And here's a little trick, just to make sure that your UVs line up or your masks line up just right. I like to start in the middle of my brush here to make sure that I have a good stopping point on the other side. And let me finish drawing that out. Okay, great. And then I'm going to continue the same thing over here. Start in the middle of my brush. Make sure you don't hold down shift when you make your first mark. And just do this. I'm going to overpaint this mask a little bit just to make sure I get a nice clean normal map conversion. Alright, so let us now save this and see what we got before we take the final leap and convert it to normals. So I'll go to Save As, Desktop, Targa. We'll call it Temp Mask In. We'll hit Save. And Marmoset updates automatically. We now have divots going all the way across, more evenly spaced recesses. I can live with that right there. It kind of breaks up the pattern we have going around. Less busy recesses going down, and it looks like our mask going across. I can live with that. Looks like it's lined up pretty decently. And it looks like we have a pretty good thing going on. See this black border I put around the window? I need to continue this divot, I think, on the inside of the window too. So let's see. Let's go do that now. This is a part where you're going to have to kind of guesstimate where these edges line up on your model. Alright, so these UV islands are my window panels. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to Window, create a new layer. And I don't know if this is the front or the back side of the window. So I'm just going to guesstimate. Guesstimate, that's about the best I can do here. And I'm just going to draw my masks on the tops of these right here. Alright. Maybe I'll get it right the first time. Maybe I'll have to go back down and move them down. Alright, so let's save it. Go to my desktop, Targa, Temp Mask In, save, and we'll see what it gives us. Nope, completely wrong. Looks like I was right on some of them, but not the others. See, we have it going down the middle here. But if we look on this side, we now have a nice recess going on the inside, but not on that side. So let's pick and choose which ones we have here. If I was more prepared, I probably wouldn't have to choose as much. Alright, so I'm going to lower that one, and I'm going to lower this one. Maybe that'll be the ticket. If not, I'll have to reverse them. So I go to Save As, Targa, Temporary Mask In. Okay. Alright, looks like I got one of them, but not the other one. So I need to go in, set this back where that was, and actually move the other longer end mask. Alright, hopefully this will be it. Alright, perfect. Now I have my mask going in on the inside of my windows, and everything, life is good. Alright, great. Alright, so now the magic can begin. I'm not going to draw any more on this side because this side's pretty much going to be all damaged and really gross, because this is like the part that's ripped from the structure. Alright, so with my normal ends perfectly made, let's see, where did I put this one? This is the window. Let me draw it, move it down onto window. Call this in. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull back, and I'm effectively going to make sure everything's named right. I don't want to confuse my ins with my outs in a second. Bottom wall. Merge it all together. There we go. Everything looks good. Alright, great. So I'm going to hide my normals now, and I'm going to hide my UV snapshots. Alright. So what we're going to do now is we're going to flatten all my ends and duplicate those layers into another tab up here. So it's good to have my history out, because after I flatten them, I'm going to undo that because I don't want it to. I don't want this to be permanent. So I'm just going to flatten down my whole mask layer group rather, and now I have just a layer called masks. I'm going to duplicate this layer into a brand new document. Hit OK. So now I have a document with just my ends. And I'm going to go back over here and make sure I don't destroy anything. So after I merged them, I'm going to go back up in my history to make sure they don't stay merged. This is a good time to go ahead and save. So now that I'm over here in a brand new document with all these black masks drawn out, I need to do one thing before I can convert them into normals. I need to make a new layer, and I need to select pure white, and I need to do a fill on this layer. So I have black on white. Then I'm going to merge these layers together and bring up my undo, and I'm just going to go to convert. Now I have my normal maps all ready made, and isn't that just beautiful? Alright, these are all my inlets here. So let's take some time and go through some basic functions of what we can do to tweak these now. Okay? Maybe give Photoshop a second to catch up. Alright, great. Alright, so the main things you're going to use after you get to this point in undo is the slant is a very good one. We'll start with that. Slant basically determines whether or not these masks go in or out. So if we do down, it makes them protrude outwards. If we do up, it makes them recess in. And we can see on our preview right here the difference. Slant down, our preview will update, and now it looks like all my normal maps are coming up. Slant up, and remember these are recesses, so we want to leave it at slant up. Okay. Our size determines how severe the bevel of our normal maps are. So let me pull out just a little bit, and we'll look at these normal maps right here. So if I increase my size, look at how the bevel increases on my normal maps, and look how beefy they get on my preview here. That's not exactly the kind of look we're going for, but should we leave it at 1 or 0? It just gets rid of them, right? I don't know, maybe we should do 6, because we want our normal maps to jump out. But remember right here, this little place right here, they're really close together. It's making this not look so mechanical. It's making it look more organic. So let's just do a size of 3 right here, because we still want our normal maps to jump out at us. We don't want them to be too severe. All right. The bevel option right here. After we get through looking at size, let's look at this bevel. There's a few different ones we can do. Inner and outer are the two main ones here. So right now they're in inner. When I click outer, look what happens to my preview here and my normal map there. So I select outer, and it kind of chokes up on my normal map here. And to be honest, I think I like this effect better. It makes it look like more mechanical, less organic-y, floaty, whatever. And maybe I can even increase my size now. Maybe I can make this 8. So effectively, I'm able to keep my normal map information and keep my recesses from blobbing together and looking too organic. A lot of this stuff you'll just have to get a feel for, and if you use your preview here, and the more you use it, the better results you can get out of this. A few of these tools here, I'm not going to go over every single one for sake of brevity for the video, but if you hover your cursor over them, it'll kind of give you a preview of what they do, and you yourself can experiment with them and get the exact kind of normal shapes that you may want. Alright, so after we get done tweaking our normal maps, we need to put them back inside of our original document. So let's hide undo for right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to collapse all these normal map layers. The reason why I duplicated my mask over into a new document is because undo, when it does its thing, it creates all these different layers here. And you can imagine if you left them in your main document, over time you're going to have so many layers and so many groups that it's really going to chug and slow down your PSD file, at least for my computer anyway. So I like just to self-contain my masks in another document, and after I get done tweaking them, I just like to go in and I like to collapse the groups So I hit Control E and I collapse them. And then I just like to collapse my normal root one all together here. And it becomes its own layer now, just called normal. So now all we have to do is go to Select All, go to Edit, Cut, and I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to hide my masks. I'm going to go into Normal here. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call this Base In, and I'm just going to paste. Okay, but you'll notice something. After I paste this normal map in, it hides up all the other detail I had on my base. Well, never fear, because with my mask selected, all right, I can go in and delete all the information I don't need on these. Okay, so let's back up a little bit. Before we bring it over, let's go ahead and chop these up a little bit. So I'm going to go back here. So I've collapsed them at this point. What we want to do now, I'm going to go back in and collapse my mask one more time. And you could probably, if you get used to the workflow, you can foresee this little problem here. And I'm going to duplicate this layer and place it in my Untitled 1. And go back and collapse all these masks. So now I have all my masks back and they're in a group now. So if we go back to Untitled 1 and I hide my mask, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to control and click on masks, and look what it does. It selects all my normals, all around all my normals. So if I select my normal layer now and do a inverse select and hit delete, now I just have my normal detail. And if I select all and cut now, and now I can bring them back to my normal and input them and overlay them on top of my base normal maps. Now I retain all my base normal map information, all my edges, but I still retain all my inset information, and everybody's happy. Now I can rename this to base in, and let's preview this. Okay, let's hit Control Shift F2. It goes through and does my mask save. I need to go in and reconfigure my diffuse, because remember we were doing that preview thing earlier. That's not the way I want to go. Let's go to Textures and Progress, Diffuse. So with my diffuse at gray now, I now have all my normal map information from all the masks I just created. And we can see now we have a nice little divot here. At the top of my thing, I have my normal map information here. I might need to go in and fix this right here though. It looks like we didn't go in and complete our mask all the way over our UV seam there. That'll be a quick fix, and it's one I can do outside the video. Alright, great. So that's the basic way where you use masks in Maya to create these nice normals and Endu, and then bring them into Marmoset and you can preview them. Alright, so in the next chapter we'll go through all the outs, all the surfaces that we want to extrude out from the model here. Thanks.